today.
Why'd you take my Santa? I don't appreciate that.
I know. He wanted to be with me.
Enough! Enough! Let's get to it, Dan Hanzus. 1 through 8. We only have one regular season week left, and remember, we'll be with you throughout the playoffs. The Ravens stay at number 1, having dispatched the Browns and perhaps altering their course for the foreseeable future when it comes to people in their employ. The Saints to 2, the Niners up 1 to 3. Let's focus on those Ravens at the top, though, Cynthia and Dan, and perhaps what the greatest threat is to slow this roll that they have been on since losing to the Browns, where they cannot lose a game. They have dominated all opponents, high quality and not high quality, and perhaps where the one team that did beat them this season, and I believe last season as well, correct? The Chiefs fit into this whole conversation.
The Chiefs are a team that, despite not having the fireworks of last season, the Patrick Mahomes MVP beauty of that year, what they do have is what I think is a better playoff team, a more balanced team, especially on defense. They've allowed 6 points in the last 2 weeks. They're now 5 straight games allowing 17 points or less to their opponents. This was stuff that wasn't happening last year. Love them.
Cynthia, you have been a big Chiefs proponent all season, or at least your model has.
Yes.
To the extent that I have attacked you for having the Chiefs in there because they didn't have a bye. And they
Viciously.
appear as though they will not viciously. It doesn't appear as though they're going to get a bye. But your model has always liked them, and obviously that is coming together because the Chiefs are now maybe that one team. We've seen them, take care of the Ravens repeatedly now.
Who's directing this, Scorsese? I love that
Exactly.
Santa
Little
pullback
tight shot
there.
on
Nice
Santa.
and tight.
I got to fix his glasses,
And
but
Chris Kringle.
the Chiefs' ability to have their defense be now an asset, not a liability, has been a big difference maker, just like you pointed out in this one. And Patrick Mahomes being gone for a few games changed the complex of the offense, but now we're seeing it start to hit more of its stride. We've seen really good play, like the defense has been good, but complementary play this season, whereas last year you were relying on Patrick Mahomes to score in 3 seconds, in 5 plays or less. Now you're seeing the ability for a little bit longer with drives to happen.
I would button it with this. I think they're the only team that can do it either way. If the Ravens offense goes off, the Chiefs offense with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce could do exactly that. If it's a tight game, as you guys just mentioned, it's a defense that's now allowing 10 points or less in its last 5. I mean, it's, I should say it's averaging less than 10 points in its last 5. So that's probably what you need to knock that team off.
And if they jump off, if you look at what the Ravens have done, they score early and then they don't allow points late. But that is good. Like if you have a big lead, the entire game flow is different, right? So ultimately, what happens if they don't start with a lead? What happens if they're playing from behind? And maybe Patrick Mahomes is the only guy that can make that quick lead happen.
What about the Patriots?
That's the team I'm most worried about. I hate the Patriots. I've always hated the Patriots.
You're not allowed to hate anybody. You run power rankings.
I won't tell
like,
Santa.
What are you
Well,
doing?
it speaks to my
Stop being a fan.
professionalism that I can do it. But I have to say that watching Saturday's game against the Bills, which was had a playoff vibe, if you're somebody that wants the Patriots out of the door, they seem to hit on something there, which is establish that run, 143 yards of the ground. Sony Michel went for nearly 100. And Tom Brady, who has been, let's face it, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league since about mid-season, really took a step up in this game with his accuracy, hitting receivers that were open, not missing throws that he's been missing constantly the last 2 months. That was the formula on Saturday that will work in January. And the Chiefs and the Ravens and everyone else, watch out because they might be able to turn it on despite all this evidence suggesting it wasn't going to happen.
I'm going to Ben Fong Torres you right now. Hey, get it together. Act like a professional, all right? Cynthia, are there any teams you hate in the NFL?
Hate?
Yes.
I'm too close.
Me or my
No,
model? My
you.
model loves every team equally.
Let's get to the Seahawks
Wow.
because we now have
How impressive.
get it together,
My
act
pageant
like
way
a
for that.
professional. Let's talk about the Seahawks because they just signed Robert Turbin.
That's
That's
what
not
everybody's
the
talking
running
about.
back we're talking about. They just signed Marshawn Lynch. They lost all their running backs. Prosise out, Rashad Penny out. Now Chris Carson, hip fracture, out. And that's kind of their identity. So where do we go?
I heard they called him JD even.
that would be interesting. That would be interesting. We've got Eric Dickerson that lives here in town, and I've seen him walk around. He looks like he might be able to help. He is still in shape. What are we doing with the Seahawks going into the postseason?
I mean, they lost Dwayne Brown too, their left tackle. It
Right.
was
That's a big deal.
and they lost to the Cardinals to top it off. So nobody had a worse
Humiliated by the
Sunday.
Cardinals.
Yes, they got outplayed in all phases. And listen, I love this. Everybody loves it. Beast mode back in Seattle. But the idea that he's going to come in and make a difference, I don't want to be the Grinch in this spot.
How dare you?
I don't want to be the
dare
guy.
you. Look
Exactly.
at this. You mean
No
to tell
Grinches.
me a guy that was doing this 2 weeks ago isn't ready to come in and carry a team to a Super Bowl
I
championship?
mean, it's possible. We don't know him personally. We don't know the man. Maybe he's still a gym rat in his retirement. But Marshawn seems like the type of dude, and well-earned, by the way, that would kind of enjoy his first year of retirement. This wasn't on the radar at all before these injuries struck in the last few days, so it's not like this was something he was secretly in talks with Seattle about. I have a bad feeling about this, Money. I worry about the man's hamstrings like just blowing off the bone on the first carry. Beast mode, be careful out there.
It goes one of two ways, right? It either is super fresh legs, super rested, ready to destroy a San Francisco
Tequila
defense,
legs.
right?
Right.
Or both hammies blow on his first carry.
How
I
many
mean, he passed his
Skittles?
physical, so
How
that's
many
a start.
Skittles
Right.
does he have to eat before this
Yeah.
to make it happen?
All of them.
Because
That's
it's
how many.
the Niners. It's not like they're playing a bad defense at all. They're playing one of, if not the best defenses.
Be careful.
I want to know what else he was eating during his time off where he didn't
Yeah.
think he was going to be in the NFL anymore. I'll leave it at that.
I would point out just quickly before we move, just real quick, San Francisco defense has not looked like the San Francisco defense of the first 13 weeks of the season. These
vulnerable.
last 3 weeks, it's a little bit of
You're
cracks in
right.
there.
I mean, but I think when it comes to stopping the run, especially when you're missing your left tackle, and
Sure. Oh, no,
There's
I'm,
some-
I'm not saying it's lining up perfectly. I'm just saying 46 points to the Saints, last second touchdown to lose at home to the Falcons, 32 points
okay.
from
It's
a,
okay.
a
I'm not
Rams
worried.
team that had been
I'm not
struggling
worried. I'm not
offensively.
worried yet.
And this drop that I dropped him down to 7 is because I do think these injuries that have really decimated them takes them out of the Super Bowl contender area. But also, who is going to really count out Russell Wilson at home on Sunday?
he
Very
plays
good.
They
who's
could
at
end up-
home.
they could end up with a
Cardinals,
bye.
Saints to Teddy Bridgewater.
Right. Good one, Cynthia.
Home?
Yeah,
Home?
how you like
Home?
that?
That's fine.
Mr. I Hate the Patriots. All right. 9 to
I
16.
am who I am.
Here we go. 9 to 16. Change who you are. So we got Vikings
Dad.
in, Bills in, Eagles in. The rest of those teams, well, actually, no. The rest of those teams aren't going to be part of it because the Falcons are out, the Rams are out. There's one team that's missing there.
Yeah, who?
The Raiders.
Oh, stop.
The Raiders are still alive for a postseason berth, and you've got them all the way down at 23. How is that possible?
You love the Raiders. Stop, be a professional, Money.
Look at this.
Oh,
if
if.
the Raiders defeat the Broncos,
Yes,
and then if the
And-
Ravens
Possible.
beat the Steelers,
And
possible.
Texans beat the Titans,
and
Possible.
Colts beat the Jaguars.
it's not one. It's plus plus plus.
Okay. Would you like to know what their Raiders can still make the playoffs look like in Week 16?
Yes. I would
Raiders
love to
beat
see
the
that.
Chargers. Did that happen?
Yes.
Colts knock off the Carolina Panthers. Did that happen?
Yes.
The Jets beat the Steelers.
That was the one that I
Did
said
that
no
happen?
to. It did happen.
And
Improbably.
The Browns lose to the Ravens, who had already beat the Ravens. All those things happen.
They all happened last week,
And the
but now
Titans
you
lose
have
to the Saints.
And the model. I wish we could pump this into your model. What are the odds that they happen 2 weeks in a row? Everything falls into place. And by the way, the Broncos are one of the best bad teams in the league now.
They are.
Do not assume the Raiders are just going to handle
I
their
am not.
business in the first place.
But I'm saying the Rams can't make the playoffs.
right.
They have no chance of making the playoffs.
Did Derek Carr get fined $10,000 for throwing that ball into the stands?
Probably.
Okay.
But
I would
you're
imagine.
okay. I see what
You know
your
what I'm
logic
saying?
is.
Like, they're still
so if
alive.
they're not, they can't win the Super Bowl. If another team can win the Super Bowl,
Exactly.
should they have more power?
How are they not ahead of the Falcons or the Rams when they can still
They're-
win the Super Bowl?
I guess my viewpoint of what power is in terms of like how good the team is, the skill level, the ability, where they're at right now. I think the Raiders are on the wrong side of mediocre.
Do you think?
And
I
they're
don't
hanging
disagree
around.
with that. I just think if you still have a chance to win the Super Bowl, you ought to be you ought to be ahead of teams that are not viable playoff teams any longer.
I would love that because then my editor wouldn't make me write 32 of these 150-word
Not a bad
capsules.
idea. Not a bad
And
idea.
you know what? I'm going to talk to Ali Bunpuri about that right after today's show.
By the way, not to give away anything, you got him behind the Jets. Hey, get it together.
Did you see?
Act like a professional.
No, stop it.
The
Get
Jets
it together.
Did beat
Did
them.
you happen to
the Jets
see
did beat them.
Like a
34 to
professional.
3?
The Jets did beat them.
Raiders.
Yes.
Jets 34.
I did.
Raiders 3.
I did.
The Jets had the power that
All
day.
right. When we return, speaking of those Jets, we focus on those 2 New York teams. Aren't I full of holiday cheer today? As we get to our next 2 quadrants. All right, back here on Power Rankings presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer.
Still
Still
going.
going.
17 through 24, Bears, Bucks. Let's focus
Ponies.
on number 22 there, Dan Andrews, and the New York Football Jets. Isn't that what they refer to them as?
Some people do. It doesn't make sense. Here's the thing with the Jets.
Good throw.
I'll give them this. They were 1-7. They were one of the biggest embarrassments in football. They can finish 7-9 with a win on Sunday, Santa. And
Are we buying it, Santa?
No, okay, that's fair. But let me just give out one
I actually
little
like
bit of
your
love.
Jets. I do like your Jets and all the draft equity and the cash they have to spend. They've got their quarterback of the future.
Speaking of cash,
And I know.
you know what? I know their coach is absolutely not someone who cares about money, just in case you heard that somewhere.
Yeah,
Then feed it,
don't
Gase.
worry about the muckrakers and the tabloid
Nope,
media in New York.
don't like those people.
One coach, and I know nobody likes the guy personally, but Greg Williams does deserve
I thought you were going to say Adam
consideration
Gase.
for. Does
You may not
deserve
like him, but he's
consideration for
not
assistant
money
coach of
hungry.
the year. That is a top 10 Jet defense that has very little amount of talent and has been banged up. C.J. Mosley missed the entire season. Avery Williamson missed the entire season. Tremaine Johnson was a total bust, and they got rid of him with double ankle sprains, and they still every week come to play. So Greg
with you.
Williams is a good coach.
I think it's very exciting if you're a Jets fan moving forward, especially
Really?
because you got the absolutely
You like Darnold?
love Darnold, absolutely love Sam
And it's
Darnold.
also
I'm too
nice
close.
this year not to have to worry about. There could be a huge quarterback shuffle, so you're not even to worry about it, right? You could just focus on other things, maybe.
And then a
sneak
Super
some
Bowl
good-
shuffle
sneak
right
some-
after that.
Speaking of a ton of quarterback movement, the other New York team, the New York Giants, who are also settled at quarterback, their quarterback having just thrown 5 touchdown passes this last week against the Redskins, a divisional opponent, and you moved them up 4 spots.
Yeah, the Giants are a team that has a lot of work to do, obviously, and Dave Gettleman, their general manager, is another man that's been under fire
Little bit.
in New York in the
Little bit.
tabloids and
I-
elsewhere. But, give them this. They have in Daniel Jones a really promising young quarterback, and in Saquon Barkley, and Sunday was a great reminder as he set the Giants franchise record. The Giants, that's a
that?
team with some history in total yardage from scrimmage. Barkley is an absolute superstar. So you have a young quarterback you believe in, a Hall of Fame level running back that's 23 years old. That's a nice place to start from. Now you got to make the right moves around them, but they have something to build off.
Like,
Remember
if
that?
they can get Chase Young.
It might have cost them
Not anymore.
that win.
That win cost him. That win cost him Chase Young, I would say.
Maybe.
Oh, and
Maybe.
speaking of the Daniel Jones, look at this. This
about
is
this?
let me tell you something.
Insane.
Cynthia, both you and I lived in Hoboken. This is Green Rock, an old Jesus haunt.
Yes, I've been there. I used to
And
live in, we used
look
to live
at
like 2 blocks
Eli
from
and
each other.
Daniel Jones playing flip cup at Green Rock, which, by the way,
We
Eli
should
is damn near
challenge
40.
them. We should challenge them to flip cup.
Their hand-eye coordination is probably far
I'm going
superior.
to say athletically.
Yeah.
Athletically superior in the
That's
game
gonna
of flip cup.
that's
I
gonna
don't
cause
know.
us.
Flip
I'm
cup is
pretty
reps,
good at
man.
flip
It's
cup.
reps. How many reps you got?
Reps.
That's something that would work in Malcolm Gladwell's whatever outliers.
10,000
Hey, I got
hours.
10,000 hours on flip cup, so I might be
I
able
probably
to
have
knock these
like
guys
4,000 hours.
off. All right, let's round it out with the final quadrant. Here we go. 25-32, headlined by the Chargers, down 4, lost season, miserable campaign, humiliated by the Raiders at home. And by the way, they lose to the Chiefs, they will be swept by their division. 0-6 against
And you're the voice of that
AFC.
team, Money.
Let's see that.
Does it reflect on you, do you find?
Yes, it does. It reflects poorly on me. All right, honorable mentions. The Packers and how we feel about the Pack
moving.
as a potential #1 seed in the NFC after their victory over the Vikings last night.
The Packers are an interesting team because they're kind of, to me, like the Chiefs in the AFC, where maybe the offense isn't what you thought it would be. It's not Aaron Rodgers at his peak, just tearing off defenses apart. But with that defense, which started strong at the beginning of the season, kind of went away for a while, and now is turning it up again in December, this is another nicely balanced team that's going to have home games and maybe a bye in January. Am I a total believer in the Packers? No. But what they did, holding the Vikings offense in their building to 7 first downs, that was an eye-opener. That was the statement win you're kind of looking for from Green Bay.
Good defense plus Aaron Jones in the run game. That's a huge recipe for success, especially with Aaron Rodgers, who, his 10-plus air yard passes were not great yesterday, but I think that, look, Devontae Adams is still there. They'll figure it out. But when you have that good of a run game with their defense, they could win some games.
Yeah, I don't know if that was more of just a gag job by the Vikings. You create all those
Well,
turnovers,
not a
you
good
can't
look.
cash them in for points, a 1st and goal to start the game, set the tone, and it just gets away from you.
I heard a lot from Vikings fans this past week about how much they hated me, and I didn't hear any of them say they were sorry or that I was right.
It's funny
You know
how
what
it
I do?
goes.
Just saying.
Just Buddha right in the middle, man. It's all good.
I have to pick. My
Celebrate
job
me.
is to, my
Come
job is
after
to
me.
pick.
It is.
Did you pour like a big glass of wine
Exactly
as
right.
that game was spinning away from Minnesota?
No, I actually was cooking for my entire family.
Humble
So,
brag.
see?
There you go. All right. I wasn't.
Epic
cooking for my
humble
family.
brag.
I was ordering takeout and going to get it. Here we go. Cardinals. Kind of excited about the Cardinals, right? They stay at number 24. Oh, no, we're not. They humiliated the Seahawks. Chandler Jones has a shot at Michael Strahan. And yet they stay at number 24 after going to Seattle and getting a victory.
Yeah, I think I got this wrong, Matt.
Yeah, you did.
Maybe
Yeah,
they
you
should have
did.
been a couple spots higher, give them that pop that they deserved in a big spot there. I guess.
2 weeks in a row, Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake. I find it so strange that David Johnson, who's one of the most dynamic backs in the league, I know he's banged up, has been completely marginalized and moved out of that offense and soon will be moved off that team. But, give Steve Keim and that front office credit. Kenyon Drake is running like a star, and he's going to be a free agent. He's a guy they're going to want to keep around. And Kyler Murray's had a really kind of strangely under the radar, nice rookie season for a #1 overall pick.
I think he's still got an outside shot at Rookie of the Year. I
Yeah.
do. I know it's
Hamstring
Josh
injury
Jacobs,
might
but
kill him there, but
yeah. What's that?
the hamstring injury, I don't know if he's
Good.
playing this
Yeah.
week. But
Josh Jacobs has one too, though.
That's the thing. And if they lose to the Broncos or they don't get into the playoffs or something like that, then maybe there's just a little window there.
I got that one wrong, Matt.
The Bengals. Here's an idea.
Yeah.
When you have one win, don't go after the fans. No matter what they do, no matter how they celebrate, just if you got one win, maybe just hold that tongue. Maybe
Who
just
did
don't
that?
say anything.
I missed this. What?
You missed it?
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd and Andy Dalton upset that the Bengals cheered when they lost, so they get the #1 overall pick.
No, you're right on this one. I mean, it's tough sledding being a Bengals fan. But you know what? That was as perfect as it could be. You got to wipe out a 35-12 deficit. That's great entertainment value for the fan base. Then you lose and keep the #1 overall pick. That was a nice way to say goodbye to Andy Dalton. And I think Andy Dalton's going to do some things wherever he ends up next if he gets
disagree.
to a nice team. Really?
I disagree.
Okay.
I think, look, he's good. He's not great. He's okay, right? It just doesn't seem like okay works all that well anymore.
Would he be an upgrade over Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago? I believe he would be.
I don't think so. You know why? Because I think it's Matt Nagy who just doesn't trust Mitch and isn't willing to let him run around and do what he's supposed to do. Instead, he's just don't
Our
mess it
producer
up.
Matt Tanton, the Bears fan, just stuck up his thumb and then pointed it down.
You're in Chicago and you hear, hey, the Bears have just signed Andy Dalton.
The glowing
Look out.
ginger man is your savior.
Yeah, close the bars because people are going to be partying. All right. Anything on the Bengals, Cynthia?
Good luck figuring out who you want to pick first.
Are the Bengals even in your model? Do you even pump them into the model, or are they just set aside?
No, you got to
Nope,
give the
they're
model
there
a break.
every single week. Unlike you in the makeup room, the model's always good to me.
Wow.
He was real mean to me today in the makeup room.
She's mad at me
He's
because I
wearing
made fun of
makeup.
her doing a radio call during her makeup.
I'm
Cynthia's
sorry that
Power
you made me
Five.
come
You should
in a
have
full
seen
day
the look
early.
she gave me.
Cynthia. All right, Merry Christmas Eve to those of you celebrating here on Power Rankings. Dan, this is your 1 through 8, and we always go from the subjective
Nailed
to the model. Cynthia Freeland's Power 5. All season long, she has done her projections for which team is going to win the Super Bowl, and here it is. With 1 week left in the regular season, the Ravens, a dominant 15.5%, Cynthia.
Yep, they're pretty much securing their spot in the Super Bowl. And because they're the only team that is secured as home field advantage, that's why you see such a big margin, and also the fact that they're dominantly winning. Is that a word? Dominantly. Winning in dominant fashion.
49ers at number 2
Data
because they are
have.
currently, and that's the slot that's been moving back and forth to whomever has the number 1 spot. And of course, you get the bye, you get home field. The 49ers at number 2, Pats after their clinching of the AFC East yet again at number 3. And there is one team that is just not in there that we talked about earlier, which is so interesting.
Because it's been in there all season long.
I was heaping praise upon you. Hey, you've had the Chiefs in there week in and week out, and yet here, I do think that's worth pointing out. The Ravens, I think the Ravens could fall victim to a team that has already seen them once. There is something about that second meeting with that team when you have a chance to live it, to try to figure it out the second time around.
So when it comes to the Chiefs falling off because they're
Where
almost
are
always
they?
in it, they're 6th.
All right.
It's very, very
I
like
would
the
have
small.
cheated. I would have put them at 5 if I were you. I would have put them at
cheat.
2 and been like, I told you.
Money,
I've been
be a
telling you
pro.
all
It's
season.
not your
people.
model.
I'd love to cheat it. Anyways, long
wouldn't.
story short, really the reality is, in order to make and win the Super Bowl, you have to, in the AFC, beat the Ravens and beat the Patriots. So ultimately, for me, that's harder than the Saints potentially beating the Packers or beating the 49ers.
And by the way, that's one of the probably the most interesting debate we're going to have next week after Week 17 is completed and we know what the playoffs look like is how do we feel about the Saints if they have to go on the road twice to play at San Francisco, at Seattle, at it wouldn't be San Francisco, but if they have to go play.
But still, the NFC is more compressed, whereas like the AFC, there's 3 good teams and kind of a bigger drop-off after that. So
wasn't Sunday a nice sign, though?
I thought it was.
The Saints? I mean, I know
the problem with their
Tennessee's
defense, did you see the first half?
I saw the whole game, and I know they also had issues against the Niners, obviously, who put a 40 burger on them. But that offense is humming. They could win a shootout. Now, you don't want to build a team where you have to win a shootout every week, but I do not worry too much about the Saints traveling because they're proving this season, and they really have this iteration of the Saints over the last couple of years is not like the earlier Drew Brees Saints teams that stunk on the road. Right. I think this team could go on the road and win big January games.
I would just feel a little bit better if some of those guys who went on IR, like Marcus Davenport, Sheldon Rankins, were there. But I love DeMario Davis. I think he's a huge difference maker stopping the run. So I'm just a little worried about if you have to keep playing for. I know that Drew Brees, that's what he does. There's, I mean, how many times did you throw him for more than 5,000 yards? But maybe it'd be nice to not have to.
I have a phrase.
I would say if I were the Saints, let's go Seattle. Let's go Lions.
Yes.
That's what I'd be saying. I think
Lions.
you feel a lot better.
Saints fans
the
are on my side.
Blauhards are out.
You feel a lot better about them playing in the dome, I think.
And the Saints defense missing those guys on their front seven. I have a philosophy I use. It hasn't really caught on in the NFL, but I call it next man up.
Never heard of it.
What does that mean?
Never heard of that.
Next man up.
Never heard of that.
That's
you know what I call
a
it?
true team is about.
That injured our broadcast, and I'm going to move the drill. Here we go. This is our random ranker. We're taking on Christmas movies. Cynthia, get us started. Your top 5 Christmas movies and what you want to focus on.
I'm glad we're starting with the right ones. First off, it's at number 5. How the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Not like the crazy one, the cartoon one where Cindy Lou Who's at not the scary Jim Carrey one. Definitely not that.
Understand.
And then Home Alone, The Santa Claus, Christmas Vacation, and Elf.
Love Elf.
Sugar.
That's Tim.
What's Tim Allen doing?
I mean,
the Santa Claus. I'm sorry. I think
funny.
you're showing your age, guys.
No, we're not showing our age. Tim Allen, this is funny.
Yes, Tim Allen is very
Rubbing
funny.
his belly and going like that. The gorilla noises.
The Santa Claus. That kid's adorable. The whole thing.
Nice Bob.
It's look. I had
Doesn't
that
even look
same
like
haircut.
Santa, by the way.
I had that same haircut.
Okay.
It's a bad job.
It's a great movie. I'm sorry
I
that you
appreciate
don't.
Elf at number 1. I think Elf is quickly turning into a Christmas classic. Completely.
Quickly, it already is.
All right.
Let me give you the real list.
Oh, you with your real list. Here's the answer key.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer has got to be on the list. If it's not
totally
on the list,
agree.
it's invalid.
Big fan of the Bass Rankin production crew.
Christmas Vacation. I like it a lot. I feel like Chevy Chase being a terrible person has hurt the movie, but it's still there. Home Alone. I have one note on Home Alone I'd like to make it 3, which is one of those movies that would never make sense anymore because everyone has their phones. The whole thing is built on the tree and the windstorm knocking out power, and everyone's oversleeping, which leads to Kevin being left behind. That wouldn't happen anymore. How do you get around that?
It wouldn't happen anyway. I'm going to say when you're going through security and you're headed to the airport, you're not leaving your 7-year-old kid.
Also, you have a house of 30 people there, and nobody woke up early?
Yeah.
Even the kids? Anyway, that's fine though. It's a Wonderful Life. Just watched it with my parents and my wife, and it's a beautiful film, and it hits just the right notes. I think everyone knows that. And number 1 is obviously Christmas Story, which there's a reason why it's become a classic. And it's not just because Matt Money Smith said earlier today, I used to party with Billingsley, referring to Peter Billingsley, who plays Ralphie, the iconic.
Who's married to one of my friends.
I used to party with Billingsley.
It was a weird moment in my life when I was in the Supercross circle.
And
Billingsley's a huge fan of Supercross with Vince Vaughn, of all people. And that I just found myself at a couple parties with it. But hey, look, Scott Fargus, he had yellow eyes. I swear he had yellow eyes. There's so many great moments.
You could go on and on.
The Bumpus's dogs.
Beautiful
the small little nuances of Christmas Story make it.
Fragile.
By the way, if you're interested, There is a Christmas Story museum in Whiting, Indiana.
In the house itself?
No, not in the house itself.
Oh.
It is actually a museum that they kind of built. It's like it's actually in Hammond, Indiana. It's in the, I don't know, the city center, one of those spots where they actually have a number of the items from the set, and they have the different scenes recreated.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And
exactly.
how is this not even on the list?
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
I mean, that's a disgrace.
Well, now that when you see them as an adult, and it just feels like it's just different.
Wow.
You know, my friend, that's my
flip it
friend's
on.
husband.
24 hours of a
My
Christmas
friend's
story.
husband.
Wow.
Chinese food
When
after
you
the
see
Bumpus'
it,
dogs eat
yes,
the turkey.
when you see it as an adult and the Santa
Yes.
Claus is still on your list?
It's a major award. All right,
Sorry, I'm not old like you.
I'll round it out. We've already addressed most of the It's a Wonderful Life. I don't think it's just a great Christmas movie. I think it's one of the all-time great films.
Oh, it's so great.
Christmas Story 2, Elf 3. I can't believe that neither of you have a Charlie Brown
You know,
Christmas.
that's a miss by me. My dad and I watched Charlie
Yes.
Brown a lot
Yeah.
together.
And that's,
I'm
I mean,
glad
Linus,
you have it.
Linus is special, obviously, when he delivers the story of the Nativity. The Lucy, who is mean as a snake and a horrible person,
Yep.
humiliates Charlie and gets Snoopy to dance his stupid dance in front of him. And she starts out very nice. Remember, Lucy's like, hey, Charlie, you're depressed. Why don't you direct our Christmas play?
Yep.
And then proceeds to humiliate him because he selected a tree.
Terrible.
Interesting little note about this film, by the way. Linus and Lucy is the name of the song by the Vince Guaraldi Trio, the jazz musician.
Yeah.
It was written for that special. This is the first time the Peanuts ever came to life, was this particular special. And much like you heard in A Christmas Story, when the old man is talking about Zudok's old tinfoil tree, this, which happened to be my grandfather,
Yes.
this,
Listen to that.
this movie,
little aside.
yeah, Frank Zudok and Gene Shepard's dad were best friends. My grandfather was Frank
And
Zudok.
then years later,
So anyway,
Billingsley knew.
this particular
Party with Billingsley.
special put an end to the tinfoil tree. They were wildly popular. Charlie Brown is disgusted by commercialism creeping into Christmas and says, I want a tinfoil tree. I don't need it to be sparkly. That's not what Christmas is about. He buys that real tree, and next thing you know, boom,
That's a nice
within
job
like
by
a year
Charlie
or
Brown.
two, the tinfoil tree is gone.
I actually get irrationally sad when I see Christmas trees that are already cut, and you drive by them, and they're like on that lot, and you're like, oh no, where are they gonna go? Like, with
They're gonna be
And
chopped
you
up.
are right, just to put a button on it, that Linus ran away with them. That special.
Oh, it's a
He
mic
stole
drop.
the-
It's a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
Like Lucy is just, again, she's a
ran away
horrible
with it.
human being, just a horrible person. And they're walking off. Remember, they're like, "You're such an idiot, Charlie." And Charlie says, "Doesn't anybody know what Christmas means? The meaning of Christmas?" And Linus is like,
The man was depressed.
"Lights." And he calls for the light. Basically, calls, "Where's my single?" He calls for the single. And then, boom, he delivers the story of the Nativity, walks off, and everyone's like,
One take, too, I heard.
Boy,
on
I'm
the
a
set.
terrible
He
person.
did it on one take.
Yeah, exactly. There's my single. And once upon a time in the city of David, and he delivers the, which, by the way, didn't really see that in Christmas. All right, that's too
Christmas
much.
is
I've
great.
gone on.
I mean, that's one of the big takeaways.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you for
Merry
making us
Christmas.
part of your viewing pleasure when it comes to football. A big thank you to all of our
Wait.
crew who worked on Christmas Eve as well.
Yes.
Go get your kids Energizer batteries for all their
exactly.
toys.
Make sure.
Don't
Do
forget.
not
Well
forget
done.
the
It's like the
battery.
best
Long-lasting
thing we've got.
power. Merry Christmas Eve, everybody.
Batteries.
Thanks for being
You
with
need
us.
them. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.